Good morning and welcome to Reset 2020. It's great to have you here with us again today. This is our live show number 3. Can you believe? You might have been here with us last week or you're joining us for the first time today. Welcome. We're here recording from a sunny Melbourne, actually, an autumn sunny Melbourne. We'd love to know where you're coming in from today. Jump into the chat box and let us know who are you, what organisation do you represent, and where are you dialing in from today? My name is Julia Keedy. I am the host of the show. Lovely to meet you all. And I'm also the founder and CEO of the X Factor Collective community. The X Factor Collective, for those who are not very familiar with us and just getting to know us, we're a national organisation, and our mission is really to reduce the amount of burnout in social change makers. We do that in a range of different ways, and one of those is to help really experienced change makers share their knowledge and be able to help change makers access support and advice and solutions when they need it to achieve their mission. So that's what we're all about. One way that we do that is through programming such as this, and Reset 2020 came about when COVID-19 hit. We could see that we needed to activate the community, share lots of ideas and solutions while we navigate our way through COVID-19 and indeed the recovery that we've got ahead of us. We've had some really inspiring examples over the last week, and we can share some recordings with you as well that you may like to share with your team. And we've got another really inspiring example here today with Jason Kimberley of Cool Australia joining us shortly. Welcome, welcome. Great to have you here. We've got people turning up in the chat box. Just before we get started, let me tell you, we are recording today. So if you have to go, don't worry. You can watch the playback. That's absolutely fine. We'd love to answer your questions here today. That's what this program is all about, live interactive Q&A for you. Our specialists have prepared some content based on the questions that we have received in the last couple of weeks as well. If your internet link drops out, don't fear. We've got some phone links there in the chat box. Jackie from our tech support team is popping those in the chat box there for you now. If you're dialing in from overseas and you need an international number, click on that link and that will take you through to the international phone options as well. So many people are now very familiar with Zoom. We are on Zoom here today, and you can jump into the Q&A function to ask your questions. So feel free to put them in at any time that you like throughout the show. The sooner the better, so we can actually start to see them would be really great. So yes, let's jump into it, shall we? That's all the housekeeping done. I seem to be getting that done quicker and quicker each time we go live, which is great. So a very big welcome. So today we have 2 great specialists from the X Factor Collective community, and 2 people actually that I've known for a very long time. So you might hear them call me Jules throughout the show. That's because we go back a very long time. And they very much resemble the calibre of experience and just really like-hearted and like-minded people in the collective that you'll find. So I'm going to bring them on the show here now and introduce them to you. Good morning, Darren. Good morning, Jodie.
Good morning.
Good morning, Jules.
Welcome, welcome to the show. Let me introduce who we have here for you today. First of all, Jodie Artis. Welcome, Jodie.
Thanks, Jules. Excited to be here.
I'm going to tell you a little bit about Jodie Artis. Jodie has a lot of experience in the not-for-profit, government and consumer PR, and has developed and implemented multifaceted PR campaigns for clients across Australia for the last 25 years. Jodie has worked with global brands like Simplot, Lexus, Renee, Earth Hour and Mattel, and has shaped a nimble and malleable suite of services that can be adapt and change according to shifting client needs and the media landscape. Jodie's key competencies include crisis and issues management, strategic counsel, ideas generation, communication strategy, stakeholder relations, and tactical communications planning across business, consumer and government sectors. Jodie works with organisations such as Berry Street, the Epilepsy Foundation, Anglicare, Parkinson's Australia and the Australian Defence Force. And she has extensive experience functioning in environments with multiple stakeholders, both from a funding and operational point of view, across all varying levels of governance and reporting. The key business driver in her business, Progressive PR and Communications, here based in Melbourne, Jodie has taken the agency from a solo enterprise 22 years ago to about 9 people now in her team, working with multinational clients and offering strategic PR campaigns that both showcase a clear understanding of clients' needs and deliverable, tangible and measurable outcomes, which is what we all need, isn't it, Jodie? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Over here in front of his beautiful piano is Darren Taylor. Darren is a brand strategist who has helped hundreds of organisations, not-for-profits, through to traditional family-run businesses, to very mature multinational organisations, and then right back to startups as well. He helps them build brands that emotionally connect, build culture, and drive growth and performance. Darren believes that brand is one of the most misunderstood organisational disciplines and underutilised assets. Darren wrote an award-winning book, Rebranding Branding, to help organisational leaders better understand and harness the power of branding. Over his career, Darren has worked with brands large and small, including ANZ, Australia Post, Medibank, Australian Unity, Bethany Community Support, Australian Centre for Rural Entrepreneurship, Innovative Manufacturing, and innovative startups such as SciMonster and Truvo. Hope I said that right, Darren.
Pretty good, pretty good.
Thank you. Most recently, he led the rebrand of McPherson Smith Rural Foundation, which became You Thrive Victoria, the rebrand of the Australian Sports Foundation, who will be on our show next week, and the new entity of NCN Health, following the amalgamation of 3 regional Victorian hospitals. Darren is currently a board director of Musica Viva Australia and has held past roles with Chamber Music Australia and George's Morrow Foundation. Darren is also an accomplished pianist and pipe organist, a podcaster, a public speaker, and a mentor to young marketing and creative professionals. Whew. Welcome to the show, Darren.
Great. Thanks, Julia. That was a very warm welcome. Thank you so much.
Well, it's good for everybody to sort of understand the depth and the experience that you both bring here. Well over 50 years of combined experience across multiple sectors, and really helping people with the big topic that we have today of getting cut through. So I'm really excited to have you both here today sharing your knowledge. We're going to jump straight into a few questions in just a moment with Jodie and Darren. But before we do, we've got a live poll here that we would like to share with you and hear from you. What are some of the challenges that you're experiencing right now? So you should see that pop up on your screen. There it is, the live poll. So we've just got a number of different options there for you to choose from. You can choose as many that are relevant for you there today. We'd love to hear what your challenges are. This will also help alongside our Reset 2020 research study, where we've had hundreds and hundreds of organisations participate in. The research and also these live polls is really what's going to be helping shape our future programming that we can create for you and to help you through this next stage over the next 12 months or so. Also, what's your burning questions for Jodie and Darren? Now that you've heard their bios and their profile, you might actually think, yeah, this is some of the questions I would like to ask today. So don't be too afraid. Jump right into the Q&A box there and ask us your questions. All right, well, let's start jumping into it. Great to see people are starting to respond there on the live poll. Go for it. Let's jump into our first question here then, Darren and Jodie. Getting cut through was, when we were looking through the results of the research study over the last couple of weeks, was one of the big things, obviously, that came through. But from your perspective, why is it so hard right now?
Well, Jules, thank you for the question. That's the burning question, the $1 million question, I guess we could say. I'm just going to share with you my perspective. We're very much at the coalface at the moment, talking to media every day for a variety of our clients. So I'll just share with you some takeouts that we're seeing through our conversations and outreach. I guess the first thing is I'd say highly topical. Media have been looking to find COVID links. As the COVID story has unfolded daily over the sort of the 6 to 8 weeks, media are writing in real time. Their days are taken up updating news stories and more news breaks. So if you can imagine, they're also attending or reporting on briefings from the Health Minister, their state's Premier, a variety of federal ministers, and then the Prime Minister, all relating to their folios and their rounds. So the news is breaking every moment and in very much real time. I'd say secondly, the media rounds have changed, and this is a really big point too. Some story opportunities have simply disappeared overnight. Think about the warm and fuzzy page 3 news photo, the cute puppies or the fun events to attend, the charities highlighting their work with the sick children. Basically, these have all taken a break, and hard news stories are what's hit the deck. So it's all hands on, and many journalists have had their rounds dissolved before them and have been reallocated to news desks or news rounds. Another contributing factor we're seeing is, I guess, the negativity around a lot of the stories at the start of COVID. So there was a lot of doom and gloom as this unfolded. So climbing infection rates, job losses, family separations. It's hard to match the gravitas of these situations as an organisation trying to get the ear of the media. Just, I guess, hard to catch is the other key thing that we've discovered. In an environment where everybody's been sent home to work, it's become a simple matter of geography. We've found that it took sometimes 3 or 4 outreaches with the same pitch of the same story and the same case studies to get the journalist attention.
Right.
We would actually get the story up eventually, and they liked the story, but many just didn't have access to their normal resources, and we simply didn't have mobile numbers to get through to every single one of them. And I think one point probably that should be considered on a final issue is authenticity. So the media's noses are to the ground, and they're sniffing out the stories with tenuous links right now. So they're pushing back on pictures that are maybe to link a business or an operation to COVID, be it an NFP or a social enterprise or a commercial business. They want to see a real and an obvious link, and a very authentic link as well.
Yeah, good points. Good point. From your perspective, Darren, what's happening?
It's interesting. So I think it's fairly obvious that we're seeing record levels of digital usage, and you'd say you perhaps think that that's a good thing. There's more eyeballs on brand communications, but there's been a probably more than a commensurate increase in the content volume. So brands need to work harder to stand out during this time, and we've had a number of our clients come to us saying that our brand engagement has gone down significantly, particularly across social, despite perhaps even being more frequent in communications. There's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of repetitious, recycled content out there. I didn't realise that I'd signed up to so many newsletters until COVID time. I'm sure everyone else is in the same basket. But I think it's quite interesting getting all of those different pieces of content, because it gives us a bit of an understanding of what others are doing and how poorly in a lot of cases. I think everyone's pivoting to new offerings. So everyone's responding, everyone's on their own reinvention continuum, and they're trying to offer new values. So that is a very cluttered space. So while people are looking for new offerings and new solutions as they embrace the post-COVID world, there's a lot more people in the game as well. I think panic and fear have also paralysed action. That's changed. I mean, we are 8 weeks or so in now, and that is changing, and people are starting to be a bit more active and not just bunkering down. So I just wanted to just add one more thing, if I may, Jules. There's a slide, the very last slide of that graph pack that I sent you. There's one of the issues with charities is it's a very cluttered space anyway, and there's an interesting visual that Julia will just bring up in a moment. But I think this is quite dramatic. We probably all are aware that we have one of the highest number of charities per capita in the world, and that shows the time series graph of that playing out there. So for charities, not-for-profit, social impact organisations, they have a double whammy with COVID. They've got an increase. It's very cluttered in a lot of categories anyway, and then you've got the added overlay of COVID message saturation. So it's a particular challenge for NFPs at this time.
That's a great graphic, actually. I think we all know that the pink line, we know that sort of escalation in terms of cumulative charities established, but it's that light blue line that I don't know if people can see that very well, and we'll have this available after the show today as well. But that light blue line is population per charity or per not-for-profit or social enterprise in terms of thinking about, what's actually changed there. That's from the Cause report, which is a great report from JB Weir. But thanks for sharing that today, Darren. I haven't actually seen that one with the light blue line going across there like that. Thanks for sharing those reflections, Jodie and Darren. Let's jump into a couple of questions before we bring Jason from Cool Australia onto the show. Let's look at some solutions as well. We've certainly just had a good talk about the problem. How can organisations stand out in the ultra cluttered market right now? What ideas and advice do you have for us today?
Well, I'll jump in here, Juliet. So I think I'd like to share something that I think can add value to everyone, and it's a concept that we use within our business, and it's something that my business mentor refers to as the rule of W. So it's 5 quick and easy checks that you can use to ensure that you have a strong and clear value proposition to be taking to market or taking to the media. It's as simple as who, what, when, where, and why. And you can apply it to your brand and the message you want to go to market with. So to illustrate what that looks like, we would say, who is the group that you were talking to? Are they your sponsors? Are they your stakeholders? Are they the community that you advocate for? What are you saying? What is it that's at the core of what you want to tell them? Is it a health message? Is it about financial aid? Is it an event that's been cancelled? When are you talking to them? Are you talking to them because the message is of value right now? Does it have to be communicated immediately, or can it wait? Is it really a good time right now? And where are you communicating? What channels are you using? Is it a media-worthy story, for example, or is it just for your community? Should it be via your newsletter, or should it be in the early general news of one of the capital city newspapers? And why, finally, are you talking to them? Are you providing them with pertinent information? Does it relate, say, to their medical condition? Is it about support that's available for them? Is there a cure or a breakthrough? And we say that once you've run your story through these steps, you can then look closely at the media narrative. Read what the media are covering, immerse yourself in what they're looking at. It's much easier to tap into a conversation that the media are having than start a brand new one, especially right now in the middle of, a once in a lifetime event such as COVID, for example.
Great, thank you for that, Jodie. That's fantastic. Darren, how about your thoughts on this topic?
I'd just say I think that's really wise advice from you, Jodie, and I think it's a good segue into the first point I'd like to make, and that is that just because COVID is here doesn't mean that we have to throw away the basic marketing principles that we adhere to in general time. And the first is obviously segmentation. We don't spam everyone in our database. I haven't heard from a lot of the people that have contacted me before, and I'm sure everyone else is in the same basket. I think personalisation is really important. And this is a time when it's really critical, I think, to be sincere and show that you're almost talking to them one-to-one. I know a lot of our clients have been picking up the phone and actually speaking to their clients rather than sending them the newsletters. And obviously that can't be achieved easily at scale, but I think that's something to really think about. Frequency. There's no rule about frequency, in my view, as long as it's relevant and valuable. but there is a lot of over communication. So I would say, really focus on quality over quantity, and show that you really understand their position. There is nothing worse than being tone deaf to what's going on in their life. For instance, trying to sell them something that they clearly don't need or don't want right now and there's been a lot of that, of course. I think be authentic and sincere. I mean, we've seen so many of these headlines. We're here for you. We're in this together. I think we're all over it completely. And very early on in the crisis, I responded to an ad of a major bank who shall remain nameless. We're in this together, and call us, and we'll can help you in some way. And I made a request, and that was 8 weeks ago. I haven't heard anything back since, despite many attempts to resurrect that conversation. So deliver on what you promised, because it will be remembered many times over. And I think be consistent and distinctive. This is not a time to be beige. So we talk about one look, one feel, one voice. So that applies to all of your brand, your visual brand, your verbal brand, every touch point across your organisation. One look, one feel, one voice. And I think we're seeing a lot of organisations reconnect with their purpose, in line with what Jodie was saying before about being deliberate about the whys, the whats, the whos. But I think in respect to your unique value proposition and your purpose, being really true to that and reconnecting with it.
Beautiful. Excellent. We've got some great examples coming up shortly as well after our chat with Jason from Cool Australia, which we're going to jump into next. Jodie and Darren have put together some lovely graphics to share with you after our interview with Jason. So do hang around to have a look at those. We'll also share all of this in a slide pack with you after the session today. But we're just going to, we'll leave some of these other questions that we have just until after our chat with Jason. We're going to jump across there. Thank you for everyone who participated in the live poll. I'll share with you shortly what some of those results were and share that up on the screen so you can see that as well. What are your questions here today? I'm sure as you're sitting here, you're starting to think, yeah, actually there's a couple of challenges that we're having right now in our organisation. Don't be shy, pop them into the Q&A box and we can address those with you shortly. But I'm just going to now bring on Jason back onto the screen. Just one moment while we do this part. I'm sure all of you are having all of this lovely experience with hosting shows now as well. So Jason, I'll bring you on there. Hopefully I can see you. And can you hear us, Jason?
Stand by. Yep, we're good.
Okay, let's see. There you are. Welcome. Fantastic. Great to have you here with us today.
Thanks for getting a little battling not-for-profit onto your show, Jules. Greatly appreciate it.
Great to have Cool Australia. It's funny, when it was suggested, I was like, I've heard about you so much over the years, and it's finally great to actually meet you and find out a bit more about this amazing organisation. You've had incredible few weeks throughout this whole COVID journey.
I know, online education, who knew? It's certainly been a revelation for us and certainly for lots of people around the country. And I think it's one of those things that, we've been a decade in preparing for, a moment where people realise the importance and the opportunity and the flexibility, I think, is the important thing to note about at-home learning and online education. So it's been certainly informative for us, and our audience has really embraced it.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. And that's one of the reasons why we're so excited to have you here today as well, is to actually look retrospectively of all the things that you had done to actually really enable you to capitalise on this moment in time. And then all of the things, all the unintended things, I guess, that have come about because of, all the unexpected surprises. And we can't wait to hear all about that today with you as well. Thanks, Jason. Just before we jump into it, we're going to do an introduction, because this segment will be cut out and shared with our media partners at Pro Bono Australia. So talk about cut through. Go and set yourself up with some lovely media partners and share content. That was something that came through the other day on our live show as well. We all have something important to say and share. So we're going to be sharing this with our partners at Pro Bono Australia as well. So you're going to hear me just do another little introduction, so just stay on the line. A very big welcome and thank you for being here at Reset 2020. You can see on the screen with me today all of these wonderful people here to talk about how you can actually get some cut through with your communications. In the top left there, we've got Darren Taylor, who's a brand specialist from the X Factor Collective community. In the bottom left, we have Jodie Artis, a long-time, very experienced media relations specialist, also from the X Factor Collective community. And Jason Kimberley, the Managing Director of Cool Australia, here to share all the great things that have been happening for Cool Australia, which we hope will be very inspiring for you to take away back into your organisations today. Reset 2020 has been made possible and has been made free of charge for everybody to access this wonderful show, thanks to our partners at Equity Trustees. And yeah, welcome guys. Great to have you here on the show today.
Thanks for having us.
Excellent. Now, Jason, let's jump into Cool Australia. For those who are not familiar with Cool Australia, can you just give us a brief background on why were you set up and what's your mission?
Sure. So on returning from a trip from Antarctica in 2005, I discovered that we were doing a pretty ordinary job as stewards of our planet, and I was wondering what was happening in the education system to get the next generations informed and active citizens. So there was a lot of pretty don't do this, don't do that, very uninspiring, and by the way, 10 easy tips to fix everything. So I thought if I was a kid at school, this is not helpful, not inspiring. So saw an opportunity to speak in plain English with a sense of humour, to engage in real world issues, to drag them to the heart of the curriculum in maths and history and science and English lessons, which hadn't been previously done. So it's real world learning, it's putting that wow factor in for the students, and it's also supporting teachers teaching outside of their areas of expertise. Up to 45% of teachers in secondary are teaching in areas outside of their training. So it's about giving the confidence and upskilling. And when we ask teachers for evaluation, they say, hey, I'm a better teacher as a result of this program, and my kids are more informed, more likely to take action. So we're in 90% of schools. We're being used by 45% of Aussie teachers with about 1,500 free online lessons.
Wow, fantastic. And congratulations on everything you've been doing over the years as well. Just an amazing organisation. Jason, can you tell us what happened for Cool Australia when COVID-19 hit?
Sure. I suppose as the sort of the proverbial doors were closing on the schools and it was apparent that people were going to be sent home to go and learn with mum and dad and their carers, there was an absolute mad scramble by teachers and by parents to get a body of work together that the students could work on for the next days, weeks, months. No one was sure what was going to happen. So we typically might have 20 or 30 people on our website. At one stage, it was about 800 on the website, all busily finding resources, information. And so it was a scramble in those first few days. But the really important thing for us was, how do we translate this in-class learning experience to at home, and how can we nurture and support mums and dads who aren't teachers, and we don't expect them to be teachers. So we identified 200 of our most popular classroom lessons. We approached one of our fantastic supporters, the Origin Foundation, and they saw fit to fund the transfer of those 200 in-class lessons to at-home learning. And they had all elements, things that could be done at home, that were creative, that were active, that we really thought could work for parents and kids at home. So that was a big undertaking. It took us we dropped everything for 3 weeks and produced all those resources. And we've had over 10,000 parents come to the website or have lessons shared with them by teachers sending them home. So yeah, it was very busy for us. We've never been busier, and everyone working at home did a magnificent job.
Well, I can definitely resonate, and so can Jodie here today with the the parent aspect of that. And I was told by my 6-year-old that I should give my mum a call because she had been a teacher and maybe she could give me some tips. So it's been a very interesting time indeed for all. Jason, when all of this happened, your web registrations went through the roof. 600% is the figure that you shared with us. What had you been doing in the organisation that had sort of set you up in good stead to be able to even deal with that when it happened?
Yeah, well, I suppose one of the beauties of our program, and we have been going since 2008, is that all teachers have either found us themselves or have been recommended by one of their colleagues. So no one's mandated, oh, you must use Call Australia, this is something you need to do. So one of the great strengths we've got is of the 125,000 registered teachers, they've all come to their own determination that this is a spot they want to go to. So I think we're coming off a strong and trusted brand who's been supporting teachers for over a decade now. We had something interesting. They know we can build their skills. And we also really focus on is building teachers' confidence and competencies outside of their areas of expertise, and also with kids making lessons interesting. So we had that really great basis to work from. And we've always had a focus on our digital toolbox, which is a place where parents and teachers students and parents can come together and share videos and understanding. So what we really did was expand that idea of how parents and their kids could work together, and offer that in bits that could be readily understood, taking out a bit of the education jargon, simplifying it, and really basing it around the kitchen, the home, the garden, and physical activity, as well as the creativity, and obviously keeping the literacy and numeracy focus.
Wow. And you're obviously doing all of that while just dealing with the scramble of having your team work from home, everyone having to deal with their own personal challenges and changes as well.
Well, I think part of that preparation, I think the team's really important. And for the last 8 years, we've had, at least half of our team doing, up to 2 or 3 days a week from home. We've always been a very flexible employer. So for us to work remotely, everyone in the office was doing at least 1 or 2 days a week from home anyway. So it was an absolute cinch for us. Everyone just slipped home two weeks before everyone else. We thought could get a bit rough. We've got a lot of work to do, and the productivity has been unbelievable. Everyone's been so dedicated, and it hasn't been. There's been no complaints, and the workload's been enormous, and really been so pleasing for the team. And it's been whilst there's been a lot of challenges, generally in the world, and particularly in education, and we've heard lots of stories about parents being frustrated and kids being frustrated, and are we falling behind? Aren't we? Well, the data points to the fact that we really don't fall behind in all the leading countries. If you rank them by their PISA results, they all do 10 weeks a year less than us. So it's not necessarily about the volume of work, but it's about the quantity. And I think it's been a wonderful opportunity to families to understand a bit more about each other, how they work, how they study, and how they interact. We know we may not get this chance again. So I think it's really about making the most of it and finding the good in the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things in terms of the materials is some of the content helping parents and children have conversations about some of the big issues that are happening in the world, not just in terms of a pandemic, but sustainability and human rights and all of these big topic areas, and enabling families to have conversations right now. Can you share with us, I guess it sort of opened up this opportunity to talk more with parents and share with parents some of the materials that Cool Australia does have. Can you share with us how that's been for you in terms of, talking to a new audience of parents?
Yeah, well, most of the team at Cool are parents and have got their own kids, so everyone was, in the midst of their own homeschooling. So there was certainly no lack of actual educational experience, and also parental. So everyone knew what we were dealing with. We didn't have to, ask anyone or do any research. So I think that was really helpful. And I think that the real focus, what we've had is, the idea of being able to stay calm and do what you can do. Parents aren't teachers, and I think one thing we've all learned is a much greater respect and admiration for the brilliant work that teachers do. It's not, I think the conversations of, they get all those holidays and sort of do nothing. I think that sort of mentality mentality is well behind us, and hopefully teachers can be more have greater recognition in the community for the wonderful work they do. It's a very challenging job, and I think most of us parents who had a crack at the home learning, had a crack 8 or 10 weeks, have really got a renewed appreciation for that work and respect for what teachers do.
Yeah. And what sort of materials and what are the content and themes that you're seeing parents engage most with your materials?
Well, I think the kitchen's been a really strong point. I mean, there's some wonderful, we might just think of a meal, but there's creativity, there's design, there's the maths, there's the science around it. We've got lots of great work around recipes and simple things that can be done in the kitchen. Also, keeping physically and mentally healthy is important as well. So when the pressure comes on or it's not working with the kids, it's time to have a zone out. It's not a regimented 45-minute series of lessons all day and limited breaks. So I think flexibility and really working with your kids, and particularly work with yourself. I think the reports we've had of parents, getting stressed and what can I do? And it's really about breaking things down into a series of tasks. It's not some big overwhelming thing that's sort of off in the distance, weeks ahead. How am I going to manage? So it's really a series of tasks, tick them off one by one, and you get through the week and recalibrate again. Just even some things like getting your kids to wear their school uniform to help them focus on work, or in the morning do all the maths and the science subjects in the morning when the kids are a bit more relaxed, or tired in the afternoon once we're a bit more creative and get some running around or more artistic things. So it's about balancing the day and not trying to be a teacher, and being a parent and enjoying that moment with your kids.
And so do you see an opportunity now to talk with parents more into the future? Has this opened up a new opportunity for the organisation that you didn't expect?
Yeah, well, it's something we had under discussion, and we're in the process of building a new website, and we're looking at the different areas that we have on the website and who we want to talk to who and what we're going to support. So we were certainly considering a role for parents in their kids' education, and certainly on the back of the last 2 months, we've had I would say major redesign, but we've certainly accentuated that parent student portal, and obviously there's 200 lessons we'll put in there, and that might be for when kids are crook or something happens or they're at home, and now parents have got the that skill and that confidence and those new skills to be able to apply that to different situations. So we think it's certainly impacted us to a small degree as to how we're going to implement it, and it's certainly solidified a few of our ideas around the delivery of that.
Yeah, fantastic. That's great. Jodie, I'd just like to bring you in here on the conversation at this point. And in terms of the way that Cool Australia has actually crafted its messages and communicated during this time, can you share with us around what's been important from your perspective in the messaging with the success that the organisation has had with parents specifically?
Sure thing, Jules. So I guess what's interesting about Cool is that they were ready for the opportunity and they saw it as it came and they took it. So I think this goes back to the original point about being authentic in your communication and adding value, not trying to find a link that's not actually there. Cool had a link and offered real value at a time when everyone was panicking. So I think there's a few standout points here, and I don't know if Jason, communicated this, but Cool was already in 90% of schools across Australia. So the brand had trust, which is really important. I'm sure Darren will agree that it's a critical attribute that parents look for when engaging in brands on behalf of their children. They were also an online learning tool from the start, so they weren't like schools who had to pivot from classrooms to online learning. They were actually there and operating that way. So I guess this gave them a competitive advantage to a lot of other brands that were aiding and assisting schools in pivoting into online learning. As a result of that, I feel like they created a pull-push engagement with parents. Actually, they pulled parents in and they were able to push information out. Most importantly, this is probably, Jason doesn't articulate this a lot because he's a very sweet man, but they took the fear out of what was happening and they empowered parents. They had a great opportunity to really dominate, and they didn't do that. They went in with a don't panic message. When it was all fearful and everyone was terrified, the message was don't panic, keep cool. They offered hints and tips and advice on how to navigate being online in the online learning world. And they created, as Jason mentioned, a dedicated parent portal to assist them with home learning, and they invested really heavily in that process. They looked at themselves and they presented themselves as partners. So their messaging again was positive, but they never took an us versus them mentality with schools and teachers. And I think that's really important. They focused their messaging on advocating for education and for teachers and adding value to what the schools were doing. Because, you know, when you consider it, at the end of all of this, when everyone goes back to the classroom, you know, we always have a saying, people don't remember how you entered the room, they remember how you exit the room. And going through this process, Jason and the COOL team were able to add real value, show real support, and be real partners. And when it's all over, that's the legacy they'll carry with them in the future of their online learning.
Fantastic. Excellent. That's great. Back to you, Jason. It'd be interesting to unpack some of the decisions that you've made over the years in terms of where you've put the investment in the organisation. So looking across brand and relationships and the profile that you have and the PR opportunities that you've used. Can you take us back and explain to us where did you put the energy and the investment, and then how have you actually seen that pay off for you now in this time?
Yeah. Well, we've been really focused on just creating really high quality educational resources that we know have got that wow engagement factor for the students, that help teachers, that save them time, that upskill them to teach in particular areas. So I suppose I'd say we're probably a little guilty of not marketing ourselves as best we can, and our absolute focus has been on our work. So you know, lots of I think there's about 500 tech startups in Australia, and you know, the emphasis, as far as I can see, is on the tech, and they're not necessarily sure about which educational problem they're solving. So whereas we've been really focused on putting great in-depth classroom lessons that support the teacher all the way through. We assume no knowledge at step 1, at step 2, at step 3, and teachers can jump in, you know, wherever they feel confident. So I think that one of the great things we've been able to manage to do is that word of mouth. We haven't had a great focus, I've got to say, on our marketing, and it has been a word of mouth thing. So I think, you know, certainly in the next couple of years, we're undergoing a rebranding in the next 6 months to cool.org to support our international work that we're embarking on. We've already got about 8% of our audience coming from overseas, and we've had a great startup in New Zealand. So we will have some rebranding and refocus on that. But I think that we've, you know, I think rightly put our energies into just having fantastic content, and that we've been building that audience, and it's a really loyal and audience that has a high rate of return and usage. And I think we're up to about 2.5 million lessons out there in teacher land. And when we ask teachers and evaluate our programs, 83% of them say they put it in their portfolio and teach it on an ongoing basis. So that's a real, I suppose, nod to us. So whilst we've been really marketing through the quality of our work rather than an overt branding exercise, if that makes sense. So I think it's important to understand that. And, you know, we will be switching to a push on the branding, but it's on the back of great content and great quality, not on some, you know, widget or tech or something that might be, you know, sexy and appealing. We're really nuts and bolts education, high quality, and we're really overrepresented in what are typically called postcodes of disadvantage, but we really refer to them as, you know, vulnerable communities. And how can we help communities that are vulnerable in an educational sense, an economic sense, and also a social sense? What can we do to lift the standards and support the teachers, particularly in those areas, to help level out the educational playing field?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to bring Darren into the conversation here a little bit as well. Darren, you've had a good look at everything that COOL Australia have been doing and how they've been able to set themselves up in this time, that consistency of effort that I guess they've been putting in for a number of years. From your experience and observations, can you shed some light on what do you think has set COOL Australia apart, even though Jason is quite humble there of saying there hasn't been a lot of, you know, marketing effort per se, but sometimes it's very sublime what's going on in the background, and you would be able to unstitch some of that for us. Can you tell us what some of that magic is?
Sure thing. Yeah. Firstly, I'd just like to say to Jason and your team, congratulations on building such a great brand and for your success and the great work that you do in this space. So I hadn't actually looked at your website until last week. So it was a real learning experience for me. And you only experience something the first time once. And so here are my initial thoughts. At the risk of saying, stating the bleeding obvious, I think it's a really cool brand. I think it's, and I think in your rebranding, I would hate to think that you lost some of the things that I'm about to talk about. So it's very clear and single-minded. Who you are, what you do, why you matter is very, very clear. And it's immediately obvious when you go to your website. And I think a lot of organisations, you have to sift through pages, and it's left up to the viewer to sort of deduce. But you really hit people behind, between the eyes, and I think that's wonderful. There's generally there's no fluff on your website. Every part has a very clear role to play, and it's easy to find. I think the brand language you're using, both in words and images, is very much appropriate to the target market. I think it's that reinforces this notion of being cool. It's very much in the vernacular of the students. I think it's a winning proposition. You'll clearly develop something that is absolutely needed. And you've delivered it very, very adeptly. And your point before about your focus on quality, and that's shown. I often say that strong brands create their own gravitational pull, and I think that's very much evidenced in those recent numbers of increase of usage. And that's not easy to create. You've got to have something that is that people need and want, and that you're delivering in a way that is really truly remarkable and unique. So congratulations. I think you also provide a lot of proof. You're very humble. To your point before, Jason, around not blowing your own trumpet, I think that's an admirable part of the brand, that you perhaps don't lose that humility, because I think that's a beautiful thing about what you do. You define what you do by what you do, not by any other accolades. But there certainly is a lot of proof of your efficacy through the social impact measurement. Your testimonials, there's some beautiful testimonials there of the range of audiences that you touch. And what that does is it's very, very clear to someone who is a newbie to your brand that you're trusted. You're tried and true, and that's reassuring. I think what I further to your point about not doing a lot of marketing, I would say we often use the term of more sausage, less sizzle, and I think that's probably relevant to your journey to date. Excuse me. Your focus has been very much on the product and getting the product right, and creating something that people really want and need and is valuable. The sizzle is coming a bit later, but I would just reinforce: don't lose some of the beautiful things that you've created in all these years in doing that rebrand. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Great. Thank you for those observations, Darren. If you're listening here with us today or in the recording hereafter, there might be some things there that you can take back and actually look at what Cool Australia are doing, and those very small, nuanced things in terms of the no fluff and the trust, and how are you actually building that with your communities, and these are all the things, I guess, in terms of today's topic, getting that cut through. How do you get that cut through? How do you have those conversations and keep them alive? Jason, you've talked a little bit about building the parent portal. You touched a little bit on cool.org and the international opportunities that are coming as well. Can you take us down that path a little bit more and tell us, what are you actually seeing in terms of new opportunities? What has this created for the organisation?
Yeah, well, I think it's really important who you partner with and who you work with. And as a little, Batley not-for-profit, we've got to start debate and what we can do. And I'm really interested in who we can partner with so that our output is much greater than some of our parts. So whilst we're the education experts and have got a really fantastic pedagogical approach, and it's something that invigorates kids and upskills teachers and helps them build their confidence to teach areas they might not have otherwise thought of teaching. The important thing is that we're able to, I suppose, to follow that up and to back that up. And by that, I mean, where are the next steps? How can we help teachers and kids understand, the continuum of learning? How can we have, documentary filmmakers who might have a fantastic story to tell about racism and the final quarter, Adam Goods. We've got, 50 lessons from year 5 to year 12 on that, and it's just been received enormously well. Kids go to the screenings and the feedback is, I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed. How do I have this conversation with my parents or my family? I can't believe this happened in Australia. So our job as educators is give them the tools they need to have those conversations and how they're going to be able to tackle it, how they might be able to create new standards in their school, what sort of behaviour they will and won't accept, looking at issues of dignity and impact and putting us in the positions of others. So I think what we're able to do is get away from Education 101 and really look at things that are engaging and creative and ask kids and teachers about what they're interested in. And when we do that, we do these little mini research projects, and the stories are, it's climate change, it's racism, it's marriage equality has been really big, recognition of the difference of others and celebrating that rather than choosing not to understand and be ignorant and be mean to someone. Why don't we understand and embrace those changes and reflect that multicultural society? Because the easiest thing is to be ignorant and to be hateful. But when you learn and understand, you begin to love and work out what's going on with other communities, other beliefs, other systems. And, I don't think anyone can put their hand up and claim to have ownership of all good ideas. What we're all about is finding all the great ideas from different places, partnering with documentary filmmakers, partnering with business, partnering with universities, partnering with institutions that have got fantastic programs. And what we do is we amplify those programs and we turn them into year-level specific, subject-specific classroom lessons. So we make it everybody's business. So no kid or no teacher has any reason not to be engaging in important issues that kids and teachers have told us matter to them. And we want to help them explore that with high-quality educational resources.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. And with that, we've just had a question come through. I don't know if you mind answering some questions as well, Jason, as well as everybody else. A question here from Luke, who's asked about monitoring and measuring student engagement. He's saying lots of people have been talking about reimagining education. What does reimagined education mean for you?
Sure. Well, I suppose our big thing is what is the impact and how are we changing the way kids approach their work? So when we do our evaluation pieces and we, through teachers, we ask them the impact that the resources are having on their students. So when we talk about that, we talk about awareness and knowledge, and sort of 8 out of 10 report that's up, and you'd expect that. Critical thinking skills, similarly, that's going to be the way of our future if it's not now. It's not about just solving problems, but it's about identifying problems and challenges and addressing them and what are the barriers and why we might not be able to get through. But also attitude towards economic, social and environmental issues. When you engage in a Call Australia lesson, we ask our teachers about it. The teachers and the kids, 8 out of 10 of them say, I have changed my view. I mean, it doesn't get much more powerful. Wow. And the reason they might have changed is they had some disinformation. They didn't understand the issue to its great depth. They didn't have enough background on that. So when you get into those situations, it's really powerful learning. And similarly, we're very focused on not teaching kids what to think, but we really want to teach them how to think. And when you give them those tools and present a data set to a bunch of kids and say, hey, here's a data set on the bluefin tuna catch in the Pacific Ocean. Have a look at it. Is there anything you notice? All of a sudden the kids start putting their hand up. Miss, we're catching too many fish. And the kids work that out. The teacher could have stood up at the front of the class and said, we've got an issue. But when you give the students the opportunity to look into the raw data, to come to their own understandings and call it, and then go about the reasons why that might be the case and what the barriers might be to sustainable fishing, then you're starting a really important conversation amongst the kids. They're thinking about design, they're thinking about creativity, they're thinking about the science, they're thinking about the maths, and then they're trying to problem solve all of this, and they're working in groups. So, so I suppose it's really important to evaluate, to ask your audience and your users what's going on, and when they tell you, you know, their attitude and behaviour has changed, you know, 8 out of 10 of them. I mean, I think that's what we're all about in education, providing great information and helping, you know, educate our current generations and our future generations to be job ready and have those skills, and not to be churning out, you know, people and with skills that aren't useful. So that's one of our big challenges.
Right. That's fantastic. Well, we're just going to start to wrap this up with you, Jason. Coming back to our topic today around getting cut through, a lot of organisations are just feeling that their messages and their work that they're doing is just being caught up in the clutter of COVID-19. Could you give us some final sort of tips and advice for organisations that might be feeling a bit stuck, a bit overwhelmed right now? What sort of advice would you share for others based on your experience so far?
Well, I think it's important in these, you know, scenarios, you know, to really, you know, hope for everything but expect nothing. And I think if you can remain hopeful and keep pushing and working on what you're good at, I think now's not a time to try and, you know, be something that you're not. I think it's important to be true to what you are. And if it doesn't fit in the way that you thought, I think it's really to look within your organisation, your individuals, to find what works for you. And I think to Jodie's point earlier, and Darren touched on it as well, it's no point sort of trying to, you know, invent things that you don't really do and pretend that you're something you're not. So I think you've got to be true to yourself and, you know, just do your absolute best, and be prepared to change some things and do things really differently. And if you keep presenting, you keep rocking up, you know, that's half the trick in life, is to be persistent. You know, I look at people and say, I'm staggered at the roles that some people perform, and why are they there? They just kept turning up, didn't they? So, I think that's important. Keep turning up with a positive mindset. And today, I just got this sent through. I'm going to read this out. This is from a teacher this morning. What a beautiful unit of work, and what a gift to teachers. I'm ashamed to say this is the first time I've properly looked at Cool Australia in depth, and what a treasure trove I have discovered. Thank you for this amazing collection of inspiration, Jessica, secondary teacher. So, I mean, you know, that sort of stuff that just came through today. We get updates every day on our feedback. And when you, you know, can do that for someone like Jessica, who hasn't really had a good look, she'll go off and be one of our greatest advocates. So keep doing what you do well, keep repeating. And just when you think you've repeated too enough, it's probably not enough, and everyone will sort of discover and understand what you're doing.
That's gorgeous. Thank you, Jason. And Darren and Jodie, just your final thoughts and observations on Cool Australia that you'd like to share today before we wrap this up. Darren?
Ladies
ladies first. Go, Jodie.
Thank you. Probably the one thing I'd say, I think we've covered everything off, other than I think something that's valuable to everybody here is don't underestimate the value of an inspirational leader. And that's not blowing smoke in your direction, Jason. It's just saying someone who's passionate about what they do. I remember that old saying, a fish rots from the head down, which is actually incorrect. However, for the purposes of the saying, we'll use that. It's by the same, you know, by the same token, a company is led or is only as powerful as its you know, charismatic and driven leader. And I think Jason is as committed to it and as involved in the business as anyone else in the team. And I think that people can take a lot out in a time of crisis. You know, crisis management 101 is an oil spill, whoever it is, you drag the top person along and you put them in front of the media. People want to see the very, very top person and understand what they do. And in a time like this, Jason's there in the trenches with the team, and he's made himself readily available for media, readily available to schools, to parents, you know, and I think that's a testament to the way the business is structured, and a lot of people in his sector could learn a lot from that as well.
Fantastic. And from yourself, Darren?
Yeah, I've just got three very, very high level bullet points. One is I think what you're doing is extraordinary, and I think a great example for others to follow. I think be essential. You've spent a lot of time trial and testing and refining your materials, your brand, everything about you, and you've had some feedback and evaluation, and you've been very open to that, and that's fed into the evolution. I think you've asked yourselves the questions of, are we discretionary? Are we replaceable? Are we substitutable? And I think that's something that you've been able to answer very, very convincingly, because that's quite clear that you are not any of those things. I think the other thing is be clear. I think you're very clear about who you are as an organisation, why you matter to the world, and I think that's clear probably internally as much as it is externally, which is really important. I think be emotive. You clearly, that testimonial just read out is clearly highly emotive, and the work that you do, how you do it, creates a really strong emotional connection with people. So I think that's something that other brands should be inspired by. Ultimately, bring it back to today's topic, which is how do you cut through? If you create something that's essential, clear, and emotive, people will come to you. So you don't have to cut through because you already are. And I think that's a key point I'd like to make.
Beautiful, excellent. And stay on the show for the next half an hour or so, because Darren's got some tools to show you exactly that, how to, if you don't feel that you're getting that emotional cut through and building that emotional relationship with your community, we've got some tools to share there. We're also looking at how organisations can set themselves up for the upturn. And everyone has a different meaning on what the upturn is actually going to be for them, but we've got some ideas and some beautiful examples coming up soon. We've also got some examples on what you can do if your budget is being cut. That was our number one topic that's just come through on the live poll, which I'm just going to share with you now, was how do we get the word out there when our budgets have been cut? So thank you for participating there in the live poll. We're going to have some great examples here for you next. If you can all please help me with a virtual round of applause for Jason. Pop into the chat box there. What's something that has really captured you in the last half an hour with our conversation with Jason? What's something that you're going to take from this back into your organisation today? Pop that in there and help me thank Jason very much. Darren and Jodie will be staying on the line with us for the next half an hour or so. We've got more great content to share, but thank you very much, Jason, for being here today. Congratulations.
Thanks for having me. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been great having you here. Look forward to catching up again and maybe having you back into the future as well.
Beauty. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye. Excellent. All right. We're just going to pop Jason over there and make sure we're still here with you. Yes, we are. That's great. Thank you. So some lovely comments there. Thank you, Jason. Thank you. Very useful. Absolutely. It has been indeed. So we will be sharing this recording as well. So if there's other people that you think could really, get a lot of value out of listening to everything that Jason has just shared with us today, you can send that on to them. We're going to continue now. I hope you're finding the poll results there interesting. Crafting messaging that is on point was obviously a challenge that people are having at the moment as well. These topics will be helping us in terms of thinking about some of the other programs that we can develop for you over the next couple of months as well. So love your feedback after the show as well, things that we can do to help make life a bit easier for you at the moment. So we're going to jump into some more questions here with Darren and Jodie, and we'd love your questions as well. There's a couple of questions coming up here in the Q&A at the moment, which we can hop into. And Alison's asked about being authentic. Luke, we've answered that question. Nina's got a question and a couple of anonymous questions. So we'll jump into those shortly as well. Before we do, I'm just going to show you a couple of things with the X Factor Collective so you know a little bit more about who we are. There's a couple of different ways that you can connect to find support and advice through the X Factor Collective. The first thing I'll show you is that we've spent a lot of time over the last 2 years building a platform where you can actually search for really highly experienced and pre-vetted specialists. We have around 55 different businesses, professional and business services in the collective at the moment. So you can jump on there. There's just the search page, a range of different filters to be able to search and look for someone to help you in your organisation across a very broad range of disciplines. We also, if you can't find them that way, or you just want to have a conversation with someone, that sort of feels like the ATM. Inside we have the bank tellers where you can actually have a conversation, and it's a bit of a sector first initiative that we've been testing over the last 12 months or so, and that's our concierge service. So if you need some help to actually find support solutions in your organisation, you can jump in and you can actually book a conversation to speak with one of our concierge managers, and we can help share with you some of the different solutions and people that are in the collective. We're growing to around 150 different businesses in the collective over the next 12 months, so making it really easy for you to find support and solutions, as well as bringing the community together for great programs like Reset 2020. So let's jump back into it, into some of these questions that we have. Jodie, you've got a great answer to this question next, which came through from one of our registrations today around the area of tourism. And obviously everything's been shut down around tourism, but what can organisations can be doing now to sort of start to set themselves up for things reopening in the area of tourism?
It's a really good question, Julia, and it's really challenging. We're working with a couple of clients at the moment who've had a double whammy. So they took a hit around the bushfires. They lost all of their business at their peak time, and then COVID hit. So hoping to maybe recoup around Easter and through a few long weekends, they were completely decimated, like everybody was. It's been recognised, globally is a significant issue. And the reality is the borders are going to be shut in Australia for a long time. But I think that, what we're finding when we're talking to clients, they're hopeful and they're looking to what they can do from a planning perspective. And the biggest challenge is there isn't one coherent approach, as states are individually leading the charge on when they're opening their borders and what they're allowing. So it makes it difficult a little bit because there's some mixed messaging. But what we're doing, I guess I would say to you is, being a betting man, what you could say is there are plenty of scenarios in the market and a lot of discourse around how it will play out. And I guess as information's released and the rules are eased, there isn't any really big surprises that have caught people unprepared. So even if you're not as relaxed as you'd hoped in terms of what the borders are doing, you're still likely to be in the next stage. So planning is a fruitful activity. So when they opened Victoria as an example for day trips a couple of weeks ago, well, it was pretty obvious that the next stage would be to open for overnight stays. So thinking about that and planning on a level of logic, because that's what will eventually happen, it is quite a fruitful activity. So being more specific, I've got a handful of advice that I can say from working with our travel and leisure clients. Main one would be connect with the resources that are offered by the industry bodies. So there is so many that are available and they're all running free at the moment. So there's webinars and seminars that are presenting up-to-date data with surveys on sentiment and budget. So I know that Tourism Australia did a big one, I think it was with Ogilvy, and they released all of their data and made it available through webinars. VTIC in Victoria did exactly the same with another advertising agency and market research company who invested quite heavily in looking at what the key markets were in terms of returning. So I'm sure that it would be the same in other states. But it's invaluable data for you to help plan, and it's free because it's part of the tourism push, and it will help you manage your return to market and work out who the best markets are to target. Another piece of advice would be to connect with the travel journalists. They've had nothing to write about for the last, however many weeks. They have massive supplements, and if you think about it, you open them up, there's advertising for cruises, Flight Centre, all these organisations that basically are not advertising. The paper's got smaller. They've had no travel to write about because they can't go anywhere. So connect with them and get the most up-to-date information from them in terms of what their lead times currently are and what their deadlines are. Check what forward features they're planning as well, because they do plan well in advance. And it's only half a dozen phone calls to the majors. It's not a big thing, but it's well worth doing. It will help you in your planning for rolling out your information.
Great. That's really good advice, Jodie, and I'm sure translatable to any area. If you're thinking about journalists and media that have had to go a bit quiet, how can you help them? What are they actually needing that you can help them with, and putting that sort of lens on it as well? Let's jump into the next question that we have, and it comes back to our live poll result as well around budgets being cut. Darren, Jodie, can you help with this area? Where should people be putting the investment right now?
Well, I think firstly, with less resources, it's really important to focus on quality over quantity. I know that a lot of people feel compelled to throw a lot of content out there or do a lot of activities. But what you're probably better to do is not just create more noise, but focus your constrained resources on producing quality. Mm-hmm. And that might be doing a thought leadership piece that's original, as opposed to curating 5 or 6 different people's already published content. So I would also say that there's that great line of you can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I think it's really important that while you're dealing with the now and the ever-changing now, it's really important to plan a little bit for the future. Not too far, because it perhaps seems a little silly to plan for 12 months, 2 years possibly, but maybe 3-6 months, start planning. And there are a lot of knowns. There are a lot of unknowns, and I was just reading yesterday that someone said in relation to predicting the future, it's some really heavy calculus. So work with the knowns, and it's important for brands to be purposeful, clear, single-minded. We've seen the benefits of that with Call Australia this morning, and a brand that does good deeds, I think, is really important too, because we're seeing a lot of brands doing extraordinary things out there, and they're telling others about it. And those kinds of things, if they're authentic, they will be remembered. I think that's something to focus on as well. I think one thing that I got from Jason was having been really connected to your purpose and being very clear about that. And I think if COVID's been an extraordinarily difficult time for a lot of people, but I think it's had a therapeutic effect on the way in which brands are engaging with the audiences. And I think it's forcing people to reconnect with their purpose, and that helps with being emotionally connected to your audiences. And I just want to show quickly, if there's time to do so, Jules, there's that brand emotive activity, which is just a small activity that you can actually do yourselves to help you reconnect with your emotional core. So I developed this model. It's called Brand Emotive. It's just coming up in a minute, and it's like an annoying child asking, but why, but why, but why, but why, but why. So a lot of people think that a lot of brands think that they know what their purpose is, but it's actually it's quite superficial, or it's not really what it is. And so there's I don't think that there we go, beautiful. So you probably can't see some of the questions, but there's a whole lot of questions there that you can work through. What is the big issue that we're facing? What are we doing uniquely to address this issue? How do you define the success of it? What elements need to have come together to reach a success with this? And so on and so on and so on. Some real navel-gazing stuff, but a lot of our clients find this very helpful to use themselves, to work with their senior leadership team to probe a little deeper. And that will help inspire more clarity, and if you express it well, an emotionally connected brand, which is really, really important during this time. Yeah.
Beautiful. Excellent. These slides will all come out to you as well, so you can have a look at that. There's an amazing wheel that you can just turn around and actually delve into, building that core. Jodie, for you, can you talk a little bit to that as well? Budgets being cut. What are you suggesting in terms of where people should put the investment right now?
Okay. I guess in the interest of time as well, I'll compress it down a little bit, but I think that there's really 5 key things to look at. And, the main thing is to understand there's no silver bullet to this. There's no solution that we can tell you right now and everything will be better. There are things that you can do, prepare and use your time constructively. So my top 5 things that I would say to look at are to go back to basics in terms of your service delivery, refresh your assets, manage all your compliance and reporting, your CRM databases and contact lists, and a little bit of old school marketing. So just to lightly touch on each, the focus for the grassroots component and service delivery, it should be on your community. So ancillary activities go out the window, and it's ensuring that the services that define you as an organisation are what leads you through the challenging times, because they will be your case studies, they will be your reference points, they will be your pitch to sponsors and partners and media down the track. It's not an ideal world, but the best spend that you can do will be on reviewing all of your assets and ensuring that when you come out of this, you're in the best place to thrive. So we have several clients who are taking the time to refresh all of their assets. And by assets, I mean things like your website copy, your organisational backgrounders, your frequently asked questions, your media materials, your staff and board headshots. All of these things are something that are really, really important things to consider for when you come out of this. The other thing is that there's probably an underestimated thing is the annual report is completed. This is a time a lot of organisations drag their chain on their annual report, and I think we've had a bad couple of months with COVID, but I think for a lot of organisations we've only scratched the surface, and what you might find is this financial year's annual report is better than next, and this will be what you take to market. So when you go to market in July or whenever your financial year starts with your hat in hand, you may look better using this financial year's report quickly with a little bit of COVID in there than referring to the last year's or waiting for the following years. So I think the key take out there is that accountability will be everything in this brave new world. Make sure your CRM data and all your databases are up to date. This is a base level thing that can be done. It's minimal outlay, it's mainly labour, and it can be hugely rewarding. Just check for multiple entries, refresh all your data fields, update addresses. It could be a very valuable tool when you come out of this. The final point is, we don't have a lot of the marketing assets available to us, but just checking in on your donors and your partners. This is a little bit of old school marketing, but it goes a long way. Let them know that you're still here, you're still operating, update them on what services you're delivering through COVID, what activities you're undertaking, and, check in on them and make sure they're okay, and let them know that they're your partners and you look forward to connecting on the other side. Many organisations won't do this because they're terrified of putting themselves under the spotlight or on the radar, or having, that one phone call deliver a domino effect of, oh yeah, that's right, we have a partnership with them, or we can pull that and save some money. People aren't like that. People remember compassion, consideration and partnership through thick and thin. And if you remember, a lot of that money, those partners and sponsors have already spent, and it's already a line item, so they're not going to try and claw it back. Their future spend may be dependent on these phone calls and the outreach that you make now.
That's a really good reminder, absolutely. And it's definitely been a theme that we've had come through in the Partnerships live show last week. If you missed that, we do have a recording available for that tomorrow. But just the old school tactics. And that brings us into the next question that we have here as well. And Jodie, I know that you've got an example from some previous materials that we were going to share before Jason with the Australian Sports Foundation. So feel free to bring that into this. The next question is around what are others doing to communicate well during COVID-19? And thank you so much. You've put together some great graphics that we can show everybody here those as well now. Darren, do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, great. I think the first thing I'd say is don't stop. Don't stop investing. Don't stop doing. In fact, if you can, increase. So they're saying that about less than 10% of organisations are actually increasing their spend over this time, which history tells us that those who do that will be better off on the other side of a downturn. So something to remember: don't stop and increase if you can. And I just want to show a couple of examples, Jules, if I can just pull those up, of a couple of standout communications, some in the not-for-profit space and some in the for-profit space. So we've all seen the Woolworths full-page ads. This is a style of communication that is, it's very authentic, it's very transparent, and it's from the CEO. We've seen, I think Woolworths have probably done the best job of that. And they're talking about what they're doing in some detail to help their customers. It's not just motherhood statements. The next one, thanks, Jules. And this is Headspace, a not-for-profit that we're all very familiar with. You know, they are well placed to help with the knock-on effect of mental health issues with COVID, and they're offering something free. They're offering free meditation to help through the crisis. And that'll be something that'll be remembered beyond this time. The next one, thanks, Jodie. Yeah, this is an example of an organisation. This is a banner ad for Oxfam, and they've adapted their messaging for the occasion. So that's been sensitive to the current situation and being on point in your messaging. And the next one also illustrates that same thing, which I'm sure you've all seen this, but Nike have done some extraordinary things over this time. And not only is it on point, it's really building the brand. We're a brand for all occasions, even COVID. So I think, you know, there's some great examples of some big and small companies doing some great things in that space.
Beautiful, great. Thank you very much for that, Darren. Jodie, would you like to share what you're seeing people doing well in terms of their communications at this time?
Absolutely. This is my favourite question for today because I think it's the happy one. There are some incredible organisations and people doing some great things, corporates as well. And I'll share some slides with you, Jules, if you're happy to bring them up. I'll just keep talking for a minute great. So this is the Australian Sports Foundation, one of our clients and an X Factor client. So they came to us through the X Factor and they've worked with Darren and several other practitioners within our team. But what they've done is added some real value by wanting to know they've got access to funds to help grassroots sports clubs. But, you know, so often organisations just throw money at a problem and don't ask the question. So they've commissioned a survey and they've gone out to grassroots clubs across Australia to ask them what are their pain points, what do they need help with, what are they afraid of, how can money given to them add value and fix the problem. This particular slide goes to a couple of points that I was going to make, and it adds some value to for what organisations can do in this sort of time of crisis. This particular journalist is a journalist who normally writes on fluffy stuff, events and major things happening in Melbourne, races and whatnot. We noticed that his rounds had changed, so we reached out to him and suggested that this might be a story he'd be interested in because he's a good contact. So he loved it and he ran it, and it ran syndicated across Australia. So it was a great story because they had added some authentic value and relevant content to the conversation that media were having at the moment. You know, they hit the market at the right stage, which was the repair stage. People are thinking of how do we get back, and that's when they came to market. So I think this is a really good example of, you know, an organisation really having their finger on the pulse. This one, sorry, blow it up. This one was one of my favourites. This is an organisation, this is an industry looking after their own. So Clams is a major seafood and wholesaler across Australia. And as I'm sure everybody's aware, in amongst all of this COVID, travesty, a lot of people were not protected and looked after by JobKeeper or didn't have access to job seekers. So there were people who were vulnerable, no more so than hospitality workers. So this is the quintessential example of an industry reaching out and looking after its own. Every Saturday at the fish markets, they were making boxes of seafood available to hospitality workers for free. So they turned up, they queued, they just showed their credentials to say they were a hospitality worker, and other people partnered, wine companies, cheese companies, and filled boxes full of product that were then sent home with these people so they could eat. So that's one of those warm the cockles of your heart type stories, I think.
Absolutely. Love a care package.
Exactly. This is another client of ours that, again, tapping into the zeitgeist of the moment and adding value and adding something more importantly for free. They have a paid subscription service, but they realised that their value could be completely leveraged and used for the greater good. So as we call it, data for good. Sear data, overlay data sets. They're data analysts ostensibly, and they overlay free data sets to produce some quite powerful information to frontline workers. So they looked at where the most vulnerable communities were across Australia because of the cancelled economy. So retail, hospitality, you name it. And they were able to drill down and deliver a map with suburbs of where those people were most vulnerable to rent and mortgage stress. They made that readily available, and we shared that with media, and we accessed that information state by state, and the story exploded because media we were giving them data, we were giving them real-time information, and we were adding value to the conversation as well as offering a free service. So what they're planning for in the long run is their business will succeed well after this because they've given something for free, they've added value, and they've shared resources.
Beautiful. And who's this one here, Jodie?
This is Bupa. If anyone's a member of Bupa, I share this because I am. Bupa, being a healthcare organisation, have offered a free membership to Sam Woods 28. Now, if anyone knows, that's a paid subscription. No skin off Bupa's nose. There's no reason for them to do this. This is a great value add to their membership to say, we know people are struggling to get out and get fit. Here's this free service that we will pay for on your behalf in order to keep you fit and healthy and work on your mental health. So I think that's a great branding exercise from them to offer something for free that they didn't have to do.
Great. And everyone goes, well, that's great. That's Bupa, who have 40,000 staff and I only have 4 staff. But I guess it's the principle, what you're bringing home there, Jodie, which is what do you have? What can you do of service to others, regardless of the size of your organisation? Correct.
Absolutely correct. And this one just relates to Cool Australia. So this is another one where adding value to the conversation. So don't go out and say, I'm fabulous, I'm amazing. Show them that you're fabulous and amazing by sharing your advice and your learning. So this was a particular one that we did for Cool Australia, where we went out, minds were blown about online learning. They couldn't cope. We went to Jason and said, give us some practical tips that we can share with parents that will help them breathe in through their nose and out through their mouth and calm down and look at this with, new lenses. So he offered some practical hints and tips that added value to parents' conversation.
Great. And finally?
This is one when we talk about the avenues of communication. I think we talk about the who, what, when, where, and why. And this is the who are you talking to and what avenue are you using? So this is Diabetes Australia. One of the biggest challenges that has been faced by health organisations and not-for-profit sector is ensuring that their stakeholders, their clients, the people they manage, go to their appointments, take their medication. They're at risk of so many other further health complications beyond COVID because they're not going to appointments and adhering to their medication regime. So this is Diabetes Australia using Twitter to communicate with their community as a reminder to maintain their appointments and check in. So they don't have the whole community and the whole world following them on Twitter. Hopefully it's just their community. They're aiming to get into their inbox using a news mechanism to communicate, which Twitter is. Short, sharp, 170 characters or 40 characters or less, get the message across.
That's it, isn't it? It's about your existing community as well, isn't it? Like, what are the different ways that you can just talk to that existing community, let alone new people that you want to speak to as well? And that's some great examples there, Jodie. Thank you. We're just going to talk next about what you can be doing to set yourself up to embrace the upturn, knowing that upturn means a lot of different things to different people. Before we do go into this question, I'm just going to share with you, you're probably wondering, how do I get to a chance to speak further with these wonderful specialists here today? And I'm just going to show you here, all of our specialists in the X Factor Collective have their own profile pages on our platform. You can go through, we've made it really easy for you just to be able to click through and have a read about the different specialists and indeed some of the different solutions that that our specialists have put together for you. So you can see here, for example, Darren has a Let's Build Your Brand game plan for COVID-19. You can have a read about some of those services and options available to you. Likewise with Jodie Artis, you can read more about this wonderful woman and all of the great things that she can help you with now and well into the future in terms of getting cut through with media and public relations. You can also get in contact with our specialists through the platform. And again, if you get stuck, you can always come back to our concierge service and we can help you there. So just in terms of one of our final questions that we've got here, and I'm just going to check, someone has asked anonymously, could they have tips on how to connect with Pro Bono Australia, who I mentioned earlier in the show, that you've tried connecting via social and email with no luck. Short answer would be, what are you contacting them about? And perhaps starting the conversation with, you know, what it is exactly with relationship to what the value that they would want to bring to their community. What is it that you can help them in terms of the value that they want to bring to their community? So rather than asking them for what they can do for you, maybe start by letting them know what you can do for them. Really short and sharp and pithy with something like that, and then maybe that you might be able to hear back from them. The other thing is every organisation in our sector, regardless of who they are, has been hit. Pro Bono Australia got hit in a big way. All of the jobs advertising revenue, you know, diminished very quickly overnight. So have a think about some of the people that you're reaching out to and what might have been the impacts on their business and on their enterprise in this time as well. So hopefully that helps you there with that. I think Alison, with your question around being authentic and the simple solutions, I hope that throughout today you've been able to have your comment and question answered there around authenticity and simplicity. Let's jump across into, and also for you, Nina, as well, getting interest for international projects are tough in these COVID times. Hopefully some of the thoughts and advice here on media and thinking about what media are looking for, how you might connect international projects and that relevance back into media as well as your broader stakeholders. Also what Jason picked up on before about partners. Who are you actually engaging with from a partnership perspective that might help you get that amplification and drive that interest to international projects? So we're going to jump across into our final area of materials and advice that Darren and Jodie have put together for you today based on the many questions that we've received through the Reset 2020 research. And over to you, team. What are others doing now to set themselves up to embrace the upturn?
Ladies before gents.
Oh, thank you, Darren. I'm going to keep this brief, but I think the critical thing is, what does the upturn look like for the individual organisation? So is it money? Because if that's the case, corporate donors may be up in July, but events are down. So, you know, that's your revenue stream. How does that matter to you? You know, what do we quantify as an upturn? I'm just going to touch on some key points. I think 7 main things stand out from the organisations that we're working with and we see. So gathering data and case studies. It's the critical element of telling your story, and the pandemic has created fertile ground for organisations to showcase what their service delivery is, possibly by volume, and the people that they have helped. Refresh your assets. Our assets, are they reflective of who we are now, what we're doing? Are your social media channels the right ones for you? Is your website copy up to date? Share your insights. What have you seen? What have you noticed? What has your experience shown, and what can you share that will add value for your community? Sharpen your key messages. You've been through a battle. You've survived, but at a cluttered time, you have had to yell to be heard. So what was it that you spoke about that got people's attention? Develop tight media lists. Identify who your key media are and develop strong lists of those. It's been a highly active time for media across sports, social affairs, health and education. You know who has been filing and what they've been talking about. There will be an opportunity to reflect on how we conducted ourselves. I think this is really important, and what value we added. As time goes by, these actions will become memories. They're not recorded. Embrace and document the time and the actions of your organisation now. And prepare all your media materials and backgrounders. Get ready to press send when the moment is right. Be first in market as soon as you possibly can.
Beautiful. Thank you, Jodie. I think that's a really good point, is how do you want to be remembered for this time? And we've certainly seen some organisations, going to be remembered for the wrong things. That comes back to, Darren, I'm going to let you wrap us up with your tips and advice on preparing for the upturn from a brand perspective.
So I think COVID represents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to get the foundations right. Sir Isaac Newton in the bubonic plague in 1625 wrote the theory of relativity, or was it something like that anyway, something big. What do we have to show for COVID as an organisation? I think we should be asking ourselves that. So are we essential? Are we clear? Are we emotive? Get the foundations right. Work with your team. Feel free to reach out to the X Factor Collective to get some helpful tools on doing that. And if you need some external help as well. I think the other thing is to prepare for a digital tomorrow. So prepare for a more digital communications mix. Do we have the tools, the skills, the assets, the external support we need to be a success? There is no doubt that the landscape driven by consumers is going to require more of a digital mix. And I think that's a really critical one that a lot of people are forgetting about.
And you've got a final graphic here to show us as well on the different touch points that...
Oh, yes. I'm glad you mentioned that, Julia. Yes, thank you. So once you've looked at your strategy, being clearer and more emotive and more connected to who you are as an organisation and who you need to be in a post-COVID world, this is a really good little diagram, because what it does is it puts your strategy, who we are, why we matter, in the centre of it, and what the organisational focus needs to be ongoing is to align those 4 different ways a brand can touch its audiences to the strategy. So that's where you get consistency. That's where you get multiplication. That's where you get brand potency. That's where you get cut through. So in your people behaviour, in the communications, the external and internal, the physical environment, and the products and services. And that's a daily focus for organisations. Get the strategy right, redefine it, get the foundations right, and then align your organisation, all parts of the organisation, to it.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Darren. In some of our materials that we're going to share to post this session today, we have a video library with 100 free videos there featuring our specialists as well. And both Darren and Jodie appear in that video library. We're going to share some of the links there as well, where Darren and Jodie get a lot more tactical on some of the how with brand and with media, which you might find helpful taking forward into your organisations. We're going to start wrapping up now, just letting you know that we are here again on Thursday. We'll have Teacher Archer and Kim Downs from the collective here looking at fundraising, philanthropy. We're going to be looking at some of the big topics right now around what should be your end of financial year ask in fundraising. That's a real tricky one for people right now. Also, capital campaigns. Do we start one? Should we wait? We're midway through. What should we do? We're going to be talking about everything to do with donor relations, funder relationships. So if you know anyone that's feeling a bit stuck in that area at the moment and want to come on the show and listen in to Tisha and Kim, that's on Thursday. And we've got a couple more shows coming up over the next few weeks as well, which we'll touch base with you about. But thank you so much for being here with us today. We hope you've been able to take away a couple of gems to put them into work in your organisation this week and strengthen what you're doing. A very big thank you to you, Darren and Jodie, for being here with us today.
Pleasure.
And a thank you to Jackie in the background and tech support and the whole team at the X Factor Collective who are helping make Reset 2020 a fabulous program, and we hope that it's been very helpful for you today. We look forward to seeing you again over the coming week, and have a beautiful rest of your day. All the best.